What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to another D&D Fridays. Today we got another deep dive character that we're going into. Going to be taking a look into an eloquence bard and just seeing how we can really support your party within combat and just how to really control the battlefield in terms of a little bit of control and a little bit of debuffing and the like. But let's not forget to always hit that subscribe button and comment on down below. Without further ado, let's get started.
Let's go.
So, pretty much for a battlefield to buffer, one class that really comes to mind is the Bard class. The Bard really gets a lot of good battlefield debuffing spells, and they get magical secrets, so they can pretty much gain a lot of spells from. They can pick spells from any class, so you can have a lot of customization with when it comes to that. So it really helps them out and really digging deep into this whole battlefield debuffing, supporting, controlling aspect that they're so good at. Uh, so just to take a look at some of the stuff that we're going to be having at level 1. So we're going to be going with a Tieflin Bard. So a Tieflin as the race. So Tieflin gets a couple of good stuff. They do get resistance to fire damage, which is always going to be helpful. And just to tweak a little bit with the stats, the main thing is we want a dexterity of 14 to help out a little bit with our AC and initiative, but we mainly want a constitution of 15. We're going to be getting something to bump it out to 16 later on. And we want to start off with that 17 charisma. We'll be getting a couple of things to max it out in a little bit, but that's going to be our spread for level 1, which starts out pretty good. Can't complain about that. And when it comes to skills, the two things that we really want to make sure of is you want to get proficiency in deception and persuasion at least, because we'll see once we pick up our subclass that's going to come in handy to have proficiency and eventually expertise in those two skills. But other than that, everything else is pretty customizable based on whatever you wish for your personal character.
Pretty straightforward start.
So we're going to take a look at level 5 now. We're going to go 5 levels of Bard. So what we're gonna do is we have some expertise at 3rd level. We're gonna want to expertise persuasion and deception. Two things. Number 1, Bard is a charisma casting class, so that'll really help ensure that we're the face of the party and doubling down on all of that good stuff there. And the second thing that it really helps out with is when it comes to our Bard College. So what we're going to do is we're going to go with the College of Eloquence Bard. Now, what College of Eloquence Bard gives us at 3rd level is, first up, Silver Tongue, which is why we chose expertise in persuasion and deception. Whenever we make those checks, we can treat a 9 or lower on a d20 as a 10. So pretty much at this level, we're basically can't get lower than about a 17 or 18, which is going to be pretty difficult to fail one of those checks at this level.
Yeah, that's essentially having reliable talent at 3rd level is pretty amazing.
Exactly. But if you think that this is a good spell or a good feature, wait until you see Unsettling Words. So this allows us to get to utilize our bardic inspiration. Choose any creature. That creature now has negative inspiration. So you roll that inspiration die and subtract that number from the next saving throw that creature makes before the start of your round. which bards have a lot of save and throw based spells, so that's going to really help them out in ensuring that their next spell that turn really hits. Or if you're already good on your spell, then that could help an ally wizard or sorcerer or something out in terms of making their spells a lot easier to hit. Or if you have like a fighter or something trying to grapple or shove an enemy, that can also potentially
Yeah.
work depending on what you try to do. As long as they do something that needs a save and throw.
Yeah, I think this is it's nice to have that flexibility, right? To be able to throw around negative inspiration essentially, right? So that's a cool little feature to have in here.
Exactly. For our fourth level ASI, thinking we're going to get a feat, half feat to really even out our charisma. So what I'm planning on doing is the Fey Touch charisma.
Mm.
So we get a couple of things. First off, like I mentioned, even out our charisma score to 18. We get the Misty Step spell, which you can cast once for free, and then afterwards with spell slots as usual. The spell that I think will be good for this build is the Gift of Alacrity spell. What this spell really does, it's a first level spell, and whenever you use it, target creature gets to add an extra D8 to their initiative rolls for the next 8 hours. So with bards really want to go as soon as possible in battle so they can get that battlefield debuff off or that support, that buff spell, that battlefield control, whatever it may be off. So this spell would help ensure that.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to try and get a little bit of a leg up on your initiative and be able to start the controlling of the battlefield as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And bear in mind that since we're a fifth level bard, our bardic inspiration is a D8 at this level. So just taking a look to see what we are looking like stat wise. So we do have that 18 charisma. We have that plus 10 in deception and persuasion, which basically means, yeah, whenever we're making those checks, minimum is a 20.
Yeah, it's kind of gross, but unless you're the bard, then it's really really exciting. So
And also being that we have jack of all trades, we do have half proficiency in all of these ability checks, which just to keep y'all in mind, that also includes initiative rolls as well, since that is a dex check.
mm, okay,
And we're looking at 38 HP, which is decent for this level.
yeah,
And just a bit of a look at some of the spells that we're really wanting to take a look at. So we have up to third level spells, and I'm just going to take a look at a couple of recommended spells, I would say, for Bard. So starting off with first level, I would say detect magic could be a useful ritual depending on what you're trying to do. So that I would think that's something good to keep in mind. Disguise self as well. Dissonant whispers is also a good spell as well. Looking at second level spells, aid is also always a good spell to pick up for any support caster, raising up your max HP by 5, which stacks with temporary HP since it's not technically temp HP.
right,
And it also kind of doubles as a healing spell because as long as your allies have 5 or more missing HP, then this will restore 5 HP per spell level that you use on it. So it's kind of
yeah,
like a two-prong type of spell.
yeah, very very good spell.
Yeah, and a couple other useful second level spells, I would say. Depending on what you're trying to go for. Heat metal is good. Whole person might be good if you're encountering a lot of humanoids.
Hmm.
Invisibility is good. I would suggest picking that up at some point. But I guess the only other spell that I would probably really recommend is the suggestion spell. That seems like a very useful bard spell and useful spell in of itself. It's kind of like a minor dominate person type of spell, as long as you're creative enough to really utilize it.
Right.
I would say for third level spells, dispel magic is always good. I would definitely recommend that on as soon as you can. Hypnotic pattern, that's a beast of a spell. That's probably going to be one of your first really good AoE debuff spells, along with fair. So
Mm.
I would say picking at least one of those two, depending on which flavor really hits home with you. I'd say it's going to be pretty good. And then also, I would recommend the slow spell as well as your AoE spell to pick up that you don't have to worry about friendly fire, because with fair and hypnotic pattern, they will affect allies, but slow does not. So that's always something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And that plays right into the whole idea of the control in the battlefield. So I like the idea of taking fear and or slow when you get that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, so if I had to pick only three third level spells to pick up, I would say Dispel Magic, Slow, and either Hypnotic Pattern or Fair, one of those two.
And if you were actually choosing, would it be fear or hypnotic pattern?
Um, if I had to choose, I would probably give the edge to Hypnotic Pattern because I think both are I think both are really good spells and you can pick either one, but to be able to have that chance to say if you fail it, you pretty much do nothing,
Mm.
as opposed to fair where they might still be able to do something depending on the situation. I think is pretty good, but at the same time, fair is still a good choice. But me personally, I would probably pick hypnotic pattern, but that's just me.
Okay. Yeah.
How about you?
I, I think it sort of depends on how I want to play that bard. If I really wanted to lean into the deception and persuasion aspects of the character, I would probably go with fear. Just because I think it plays a little bit more into those characteristics. If I wasn't super worried about that and I just wanted to be able to output a little bit of damage along with everybody else, then I would probably do hypnotic pattern.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty deep. Like a good choice, like a good way of doing things as well. Moving on to take a look at what a level 10 bard will look like. So we get a few things. So pretty much counter charm. We could pretty much use a action until our next turn to pretty much cast a performance, and you and any friendly creatures within 30 feet have advantage on saving throws against frighten and charm, which can be pretty situationally good. Going up against a dragon or whatever, this is going to be useful. We also get Unfailing Inspiration. Now, this is a good feature from an Eloquence Bard. Whenever you give somebody Bardic Inspiration and they attempt to use it but still fail on their check or whatever, that inspiration die is not lost. They get to keep it until they succeed on something. So it gives players more of an incentive to use that die, knowing that it wouldn't be used up until they get a success.
Yeah, that's a nice little bonus there when you're handing out those inspirations.
Mhm. And you also get universal speech. Basically, as an action, choose some creatures, a few creatures, and those creatures can magically understand you regardless of whatever language you speak, which is good to have on a party face character. Allows you to say, okay, I might not know Dwarvish, for example, but I can still talk to dwarves more or less.
Right. Universal translator spell or feature right there. I like it.
Yep. We also get another ASI on 8th level. I would recommend ability score improvement to max out your charisma. As I feel like since bards are such a save and throw heavy spell caster, you want to max your spell casting stat as quickly as possible so you can have the highest possible spell save DC as quickly as possible.
That makes sense.
And then we also gain a few more expertise at 10th level. Don't get much in the particular build for this character. I would say maybe perception and performance probably, but this is depend on what else you have. I think we got the two main ones already with deception and persuasion. I think these two are what you need, are up to whatever you need.
Yeah. There seems to be a little bit of wiggle room here with what skills that you might want to double your proficiency on. So that's kind of nice that you've got a little bit of wiggle room with that.
Yeah.
And still stay in the same vein of what this overall character is trying to do.
Yeah. And then also we get magical secrets at 10th level. The first of 3 times we get magical secrets. So what this does is we get to choose any two spells from any spell list, and they don't have to be from the same list. So we could choose a spell from the wizard list and a spell from the bard list. So let's say, or a spell from the cleric and a spell from the druid, or 2 spells from the artificer. The only caveat is, of course, they have to be of a level you can cast spells. So at this level, they have to be from 5th level or lower. So I would say for one, where is it? So I would definitely say counterspell for sure has to be there. That's not only is counterspell a good spell, but if you're trying to counterspell a higher level spell, that's technically a spellcasting ability check. So it gets benefits off of your jack of all trade. So you get to add half of your proficiency to that. Same thing with dispel magic if you pick it up from the bard list.
Very nice.
Another spell I would probably recommend is Wall of Force. That's an excellent battlefield control spell to help block off certain enemies within a battle. So let's say you're coming up against like a big boss and his minions, let's say. You could say, all right, I'm going to Wall of Force the big boss off by himself. We'll focus on the minions. Once we get the minions down and out, all right, drop Wall of Force. Now we can focus on the big bad or whatever the situation might arise.
Right. That's a good spell to have up your sleeve, literally.
Yep. So taking a look, just to take a look at the stats that we're looking at now. You have that 20 in charisma. And then since our proficiency is 4, we now have an initiative of +4 from our jack of all trades. We have the 13 in deception and persuasion. So because of silver tongue, our minimum would be 23 for those ability checks.
Wow.
So we're looking at some good stuff there. 73 HP, not bad for a primary caster.
Yeah, not bad.
So taking a look at some of the spells that we can pick up. Um, so like I said before, now we have access to fourth and fifth level spells. So let's see what fourth level spells that we have access to. So polymorph is a good spell, especially for several levels. Once you get it, you could either debuff an enemy, make them a squirrel or something, so you don't have to worry about them for a bit, or you can buff an ally with it. You notice maybe an ally has real dropped down to really low HP. Polymorph them into a giant ape. Now they have 100 plus HP pretty much, and they can hit hard. So depending on what you're trying to do, polymorph could be good. Greater invisibility is another good spell. Dimension door is another good spell to pick up. But I would say those are three good spells, but as always, pick up whatever spell you feel is befitting of your character. But I think those are probably the three best fourth level spells, at least to bards.
Okay.
When it comes to fifth level spells now, animate objects is a good spell. Depending on how many humanoids you're encountering, dominate person can be good.
Yeah.
Greater resto can be good depending on if you're encountering a lot of those different type of conditions. The spell I would personally take for my character is probably Synaptic Static. Gives you a little bit of a mass attack spell, and if they fail that intelligence save, which is a good save to target, then they get a small debuff off of that as well. And it doesn't use concentration, so that's always good. You can really stack it with one of your other concentration spells.
Yeah, it's an interesting spell there. Kind of essentially imbue disadvantage. It's not disadvantage, but imbue a disadvantage on the player while they're affected by that spell, right? By rolling d6 and subtracting that from what they initially roll, which could turn out really well in a lot of cases.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think again, depending on how I'd want to play the character, I would kind of think that dominate person, hold monster, might be up there towards the top of that list. So I think there's some good choices here, either way that you want to go.
Yep. So let's take a look at what this character would look like on level 15. So we got a few things over the course of those levels. So we get another ASI at 12. This is where I would say let's take a look at that 15 Constitution score that we've been dealing with for this entire time. And let's even it out with the feat and work on our defense a little bit. So we're going to go for the Resilient Constitution feat to get a 16 HP. More HP is always good. And proficiency in Constitution saves. So that's really going to help us out against petrification and things, but more importantly, to help keep our concentration spells up quite a bit more than usual.
Yep.
And then we also get a few more magical secrets. Of course, this could be anything that you wish, but one spell that I personally would probably pick up, once I find it, Sickening Radiance, which I'll explain momentarily once we get to the spell list, why I personally would pick up Sickening Radiance.
Okay.
And the other one could be, you have a lot of different options that you can potentially pick up. Now, keeping in mind at this current level, when you get magical secrets, you have up to 7th level spells, but at 15th, you have up to 8th level spells that you can pick up. So I would probably say another good spell that once I find it.
Seems like there's a lot of good choices to be able to make here, especially since you've got such a wide range of spells that you can cherry pick from. So
Yeah, you basically pick any spell you want. So there's a lot of customization with it.
yep,
I would say reverse gravity, which I will get to in a little bit. So also at 14th level, you get infectious inspiration from the College of Eloquence. So basically, when somebody that has your inspiration die um, rolls it and succeeds, you can use your reaction to inspire somebody else other than yourself, giving giving that person a bardic inspiration die without expending any of your inspiration die uses. So that's going to be extremely useful, and you can do it up to your charisma modifier, which is 5 times at this level. So basically, 5 times a day, somebody gets a free bardic inspiration, pretty much.
that's really nice, especially in those tight scenarios where you want to give a little bit of an extra oomph to those die rolls, to the dice rolls, so you start throwing those out and not having to, you can start throwing out double inspiration essentially. So that's pretty nice.
Yeah. So let's take a look at what we're looking like. So because of the resilient Constitution feat, we now have that 16 Constitution. So for a +8 con save, and we're looking at 123 HP. Now we have a good chunk of HP to work with.
Yeah.
Our deception and persuasion scores are 15, so we're looking at minimum of 25s for those rolls, which is nasty.
Getting a little silly.
Taking a look at spells now. So, like I said, we have up to 8th level spells. So, taking a look at 6th level just to see what we have. Um, Hero's Feast can be good if you know what you're coming up against. A little bit of extra HP, advantage on wisdom saves, things like that. So, it's kind of like a good party support spell. Just keep in mind it does have a cost component to it.
Right.
Mass Suggestion is a good spell. Otto's Irresistible Dance is another good spell. Me personally, I would probably go with Otto's Irresistible Dance, but it's up to however you want to play the character.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Looking at 7th level spells. So Teleport is a good spell just for teleporting across vast distances. So if the campaign calls for that, that's a good spell to pick up. Now, the spell that I personally would pick up, and which is why I recommended the Sickening Radiance as one of your magical secrets, is the Force Cage spell. Normally, that's a good spell by itself,
True.
but to be able to more or less trap somebody or multiple people in a cage, which, by the way, that doesn't Force Cage does not require concentration. Then on second turn, drop a Sickening Radiance within that Force Cage. Now, mind you, Sickening Radiance lasts for 10 minutes. That's 100 rounds of saves that the creature within that field has to make. Unless the GM gives a ridiculous save for that creature is going to fail 6 of those 100 saves at some point, given enough time for those 6 levels of exhaustion that Sickening Radiance can bestow upon a creature if they fail. So the Force Cage Sickening Radiance is a nasty combination if you can really get it out.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's
It's
definitely something to really keep in mind. It's pretty nasty.
it's sickening, right?
Yep. And for anybody that's wondering why we chose reverse gravity, we shall get to it, but we need ninth level spells first.
This another Nakai special I see is coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
More on that in the next part. So with eighth level spells, there's not a whole lot of good stuff. Of course, pick what you wish, but maybe dominate per monster or feeble mind might be decent. But I can see a case where if you're trying to optimize or something, maybe use this level to go back to like third level spell slots or something to pick up something else that you might have missed along the way that you
Yeah.
really want. But all in all, of course, there's some good stuff here, but I feel like there's like it's probably a good idea to go back to a lower level and pick something up
Yeah.
and
Pick
use
up
it.
something that will help bolster what you're trying to do. If especially if there's nothing in this list of spells that does that.
Yeah. And what's the worst that can happen? You pick up a lower level spell. You can always use your eighth level spell slot to upcast something, maybe to upcast dispel magic or counterspell or something like that.
Very true. Yep.
So let's take a look at what a 20th level bard would look like. So we get a few things. So we do get another ASI at 16th level. So one thing that I do think could be good is picking up the alert feat for that +5 bonus to initiative to really help the case of I get to go first a lot more often. And can't be surprised and is another good ribbon feature on that. Don't get advantage on attack rolls against you as a result of being unseen. That's also another good nice little perk to add on to it. But the main focus is that +5 to initiative. For magical secrets, we do get 2 more magical secrets at 18th level. So the first one that I would definitely pick up is Wish. Wish is just a good spell. Be very careful if you use it to do something other than replicate another spell, because you do have that chance of never casting Wish again. But I think the thing that's more frightening than that is if you use it for something other than replicating a spell, the GM has any and all deciding factor on what happens. So you need to make sure that you word it very carefully. Because if you say something as vague as, "Yeah, I want the big bad evil guy to be dead," the GM could just say, "All right, you're teleported about 532 years into the future. Big bad is dead,
Yep.
but you now have a bigger issue to worry about. As the big bad now picked his or her successor that's probably a bit stronger now." So yeah, be very careful and choose your words very carefully. But if you're using it to replicate spells, then that's going to be good because you don't have to worry about costly components. So you can always use it on things like Simulacrum, Heroes Feast, or summoning spells, things like that have costly components or have casting times that are more than one action. Which a lot of those spells have things of like 1 hour casting times, 10 minutes, what have you.
Right.
The other spell is up to you. As with everything, pick something that maybe you might need or the party might need or something of that nature. So, for instance, maybe you want to pick up. Let's see, what's a good spell? maybe the clone spell, I'd say.
Okay.
Our last ability score improvement at 19th level. There's a few things that I think could be good. The lucky feat is always good. The tough feat is generically useful. Um, or maybe just +2 in your constitution for a better con save, or +2 in your deck save or your deck stat. I think those are good options. Another option that you do have though is taking up the magical initiate feat, which gives you two cantrips from any spellcasting class and a single use of a first level spell from that same class. Uses that spellcasting class spellcasting stat. The reason why I recommend this is you could go magical initiate sorcerer,
Yeah.
pick up mind sliver as one of those cantrips, and then as your first level spell, pick up shield just to help out with your defenses a little bit. Mind sliver will help you out get your really help you out getting those save and throw based spells off a little bit, as it can potentially subtract a d6 from that next save and throw for should the enemy really fail their save. So depending on how you really want to go, this might be something good to pick up.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on this last ASI?
I would probably, since I'm a caster, and we have the freedom here, I would either do Constitution or Tough. And I would probably lean. I'd probably lean Tough right now, just barely, probably just barely.
Okay, let's take a look to see what the tough does for us. So let's see what we have now. So we're looking at 230 HP, which is pretty darn good for a spellcaster,
Yeah, that is extremely good for a spellcaster.
as you're now more or less just coming online on the same level as your fighters and whatnot. Definitely not barbarian level, but ranger, fighter, paladin levels now.
200 HP is great for a caster.
Yep. You do have your +9 to your Constitution saving throw. You do have a +10 to initiative, so it's going to be pretty hard to go last. That's for sure. You have your +17 to your deception and persuasion checks. So that's going to be face of the party is all you now. So let's take a look at the spells. So now that we have 9th level spells, so we have a couple of decent things. I think Foresight is a good um, buff spell to pick up. Um, Now, the reason why I said to pick up Reverse Gravity so many levels ago is for the Prismatic Wall spell that bards get. Thanks to Tasha's Cauldron of everything. So basically, if you're able to set up Prismatic Wall, create a sphere, floating sphere in the air, somehow get whatever you want underneath it, reverse gravity up, that creature or creatures going to take the full effect of Prismatic Wall as they go through it. Basically, 40d6 plus a whole host of status effects. If they're still alive once they go through it, as a free action, drop concentration on reverse gravity, have them plummet through the Prismatic Wall again, taking all of that extra stuff, and if they're still alive, they have fallen damage to worry about. So that's a whole host of nastiness that Wombo combo has to really deal with.
Yeah, that is a pretty nasty little combo that you can pull off here for sure.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something to consider with, and if you happen to catch your GM off guard with that, definitely record their reaction as you will have a fun time reliving that over and over and over.
Oh yeah, definitely. Those are some of the best memories to relive when you can do that to your DM. So
Mhm. Now, a couple of recommendations though. I would not recommend power word kill at all. Because yeah, you can instantaneously kill something, but it has to be 100 HP or less. First off, you never know what the HP of something is, so you never know if this is going to be within that threshold for power word kill. And if it happens to have over 100 HP, the spell just fails. So that's going to be a waste of a ninth level spell slot. And then combine that with the fact that in tier 4 level of play, dependent on the party, you can one or two players can easily shred through 100 or more HP. Easily. Like, heck, a rogue can easily do 80, 90 points of damage on average with their sneak attack. Uh, Barbarian or fighter can easily do that if they have great weapon fighter, or an archer can do that with sharpshooter or something like that if they get a crit. So there's a lot of different ways to shred through 100 HP. So I don't think power word kill should be on anybody's list, but that's my 2 cents on power word kill.
yeah, that makes sense, right? If you're not sure it's going to be effective, then stay away from it. And usually at these higher levels, it's not always going to be effective, right? So that I think that makes sense. Plus, I think with this character, you're not necessarily looking at just doing insta damage like that. Sure, you've got you spoke a little bit about your reverse gravity prismatic wall combo there, right? But this is supposed to be a battlefield control type of character, so maybe lean into that a little bit with your spells too.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up. So this is a battlefield controller type of character, so you definitely want to lean into a lot of those types of spells. Um, Prismatic Wall, Reverse Gravity, that's going to be one of your very few go to damaging combinations. But at the same time, if the enemy does survive all that damage, you're still fulfilling your battlefield support function, but Prismatic Wall does have a whole host of status effects that it can really put towards a creature if they fail all those walls.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. So just going back to cantrips, there's early level you'll be focusing on cantrips a lot, but late level probably not as much. Um, if, if you don't have dark vision, then either dancing lights or light is a must. Mage hand is a good cantrip. Pick that up. Minor illusion is good. Prestidigitation can be good. Um, Mendon might be useful, so keep that in mind. But other than that, this is I think Eloquence Bard is an amazing battlefield support character, especially given the spells that you can pick up. You can negatively subtract stuff from the target creature's saving throws with your unsettling words, which at this level is a D12. So that's definitely pretty good. So there's your party would definitely appreciate you with this sort of character.
Yep, I think this is a good support character with some extra oomph in it. The way that you've kind of built it out here, especially with that power combo at the end. So it's got some ability to really control the battlefield by taking out an enemy or two with that reverse gravity prismatic wall combo. Um, but it seems like a solid character, and it's got a lot of. I like that it's got a good framework and good bones, and there's some flexibility in there where like what spells you pick up with your magic secrets and some of the differences you can make with your feats versus ASIs. So uh, I think this is an interesting build for sure.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to like the ASI and the feats, I think that getting your charisma, two ASIs to get your charisma up to 20 plus the resilient constitution one, I think those are the three must haves. But I think the other two ASIs are definitely a lot more flexible depending on how you want to really do things. Of course, I would recommend Alert Feat. That's good on this character, but those last two are definitely up to some versatility.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. And as always, if there's magic items, there's always good magic items out there for bars that can increase your spell save DC, your defenses, wing boots is good, things like that. So definitely keep that in mind depending on what type of magical item type of campaign your GM is running. Um, and also, as stated before, don't forget you are resistant to fire from being a tiefling. So that's gonna really help out your defenses a bit there.
Yep.
And this is definitely a fun character. Definitely, I think needed in a lot of parties. Good for RP and good for combat. Good for a lot of different things. Um, yep, and that is the support bard.
Cool.
And definitely comment down below what uh, how you think this bard would definitely act in combat, and maybe some of the spell selections that you think might be useful in this as well. But
For sure.
without for anything else, um, keep y'all's lives geeky, YouTube, and until next time.
Happy holidays, everyone. Merry Christmas. Talk to you later.